Welcome to the Hyundai i30N. This launch has been somewhat constrained in terms of time, so we've used every available opportunity to film, including in the airport and at the hotel, as you're about to see. Anyway, we hope you enjoy. It's Sunday afternoon, we're in Heathrow Airport, we're off to Rome, and I'm quite excited because I don't really know what I'm going to find. We're on the Hyundai i30N launch, and this is the launch of a whole new performance brand. So it's not like a new Golf GTI where you kind of know roughly what you sort of expect, I suppose, or you know, if you get focused, then you know what to expect with an ST compared to an RS. And this is all sort of, yeah, it's unknown. So it's exciting.
A late flight, a piffling amount of sleep, a lack of coffee, and I looked, well, terrible the following morning. Brace yourselves.
It's early the following morning, and this is the first time I've actually had a proper chance to look at the i30N. It's no Civic Type R, that's for sure. There are no sort of massive wings and scoops and intakes and stuff like that, which many will think is a very good thing indeed. It's got this new blue, mimicking the rally car, a little lip at the front with a bit of red, spoiler at the back with a nice triangle light high up in it. But apart from that, with some bigger wheels, it's subtle.
Thankfully, I found coffee and soon we were on the road, heading about an hour north of Rome to a racetrack called Vallelunga.
So the exterior is quite subtle. What about the interior? Well, if this is your first exposure to a Hyundai, it's not a VW, but it's well spec'd. I'm not sure about this, which has sort of just been plonked here, a little bit like a Sega Game Gear if you're old enough to remember what one of those is. And to be honest, I'd rather Hyundai spent the money on proper mechanicals rather than lavishing this in all sorts of fake carbon fibre. All the touch points in the car, well, they've obviously worked hard on those. The steering wheel is nice, good to hold, covered in leather. Gear knob, very nice. Seats, possibly just a smidgen too high, but whilst not exactly giving you a bear hug, they do hold you decently in the corners, which is just as well. And here we are at the circuit. It's going to do a few laps.
Vallelunga is where things began to get interesting. Given the slightly tame looks, the grip, poise and pace that the i30N served up on track was startling. Two things stood out in particular. Firstly, the well-weighted steering that inspired confidence both around the straight ahead and with lock-on, and actually communicated information. Secondly, the electronically controlled limit slip diff, which was hugely effective at laying the power down on corner exits. How would this translate to the road though?
Say that there are two versions of this car. There's the i30N and there's the i30N Performance, which is what we're in. This gets an extra 25 brake horsepower, gets bigger wheels, they're an inch larger in diameter and half an inch wider as well. It also, interestingly, gets its own specific tyre. Now there's a Michelin Super Sport on the standard i30N, which is a very good tyre, but Hyundai seemed fit to actually go and develop its own tyre with Pirelli for the Performance, as you can tell by the little HN badge on the sidewall. You might be wondering why N. I mean, we've had all sorts of letters for performance, you know, RS, RS, M for BMW, and now N. Well, it stands for, was the N for Nürburgring and the N for Namyang, which is in South Korea, and also apparently it looks like a chicane, which this car is obviously built for. So now you know, N, the new performance letter. In normal driving, you've got three modes accessed by this drive mode button down here, so Eco, Normal and Sport. What we're interested in though are the N and N custom modes accessed by this checkered flag button just here. In the N custom mode you can tailor pretty much everything: steering, suspension, the electronic, the controlled limited slip diff, the ESC, the engine, the exhaust sound. You can make this car your own.
The T-GDI engine is a turbocharged 2-litre inline 4-cylinder. It puts out 247 brake horsepower in standard guise, or just over 270 brake horsepower in the performance version. Both cars get 260 pounds-foot of torque, with an overboost function increasing that to 279 pounds-foot. In the performance version will hit 62 miles an hour from a standing start in 6.1 seconds. In terms of character, well, it's fine. Like most of the other similar engines in this class, it is strong and effective without being particularly memorable, in spite of the pops and crackles that sound like a slightly more natural version of the Focus RS. The i30N has McPherson struts at the front and a multi-link setup at the rear, which is all fairly predictable. But it also has some pretty trick dampers, and they were put through about as tough a test as I can imagine on the launch. In normal mode, the ride, while not pillowy soft, was perfectly comfortable on the motorway. On track, the damping was every bit as firm and sportive as you could wish, but the most impressive thing was how it dealt with Italy's version of a B-road. Some stretches were so bumpy, cambered and generally gnarly that it looked as though there had been a localised meteorite shower. Yet the i30N took it all in its stride.
I've knocked the suspension back one notch just to sport for these bumpy roads, just because otherwise you do get a bit of torque steering. It really is very impressive. I'm surprised by just how much you can grab this car by the scruff of the neck. The diff works really well. Steering's accurate, well weighted. There's throttle adjustability in there as well, but it's progressive when it reaches the limit. The gear shift feels tight. It's a bit notchy around the gate, but I'd rather that than it be vague and floppy. The brakes are fantastic. It's a really nice firm feel from the top of the pedal, so you can lean on them into corners. Trail brake if you want, just to help get the nose tucked in and then get back on the throttle on the way out with the diff. This is a seriously impressive car. Perhaps we shouldn't be surprised that Hyundai's had such a good first stab at a hot hatch. After all, I mean, their World Rally team's doing rather well. And the man in charge of the Hyundai N division is a chap called Herr Biermann.
Those of you that know your BMWs will recognise that name as belonging to the man who originally joined BMW as part of the i30 M3 development team and, decades later, had risen to chief engineer in the M division. Despite not being used to the front wheels doing the driving, he appears to have sprinkled more than a little magic on the neighbouring letter in the alphabet. And all this for just £25,000 in standard trim, or £28,000 if you want the slippy diff, trick tyres and extra power. As you can tell, I was very impressed with this car on the launch. I think GTIs, STs, even RSs will underestimate it at their peril.
All in all, it's been a very impressive day with the new Hyundai i30N performance, but perhaps encouragingly they've actually sort of gone even further. This one's here, and to the sort of casual glance, it's exactly the same, but this has got Trofeo R tyres on it, it's got padded pads, there's a three-way adjustable anti-roll bar at the back. Inside there are some Recaro buckets. They mean business, Hyundai, and they're going places with this brand. This is not just a sort of a toe in the water. If anything, the mechanicals, I think they've got sorted. We don't need to worry about those. They clearly know what they're doing. I would like to see the car probably grow a bit of a bigger wing, a bit of a bigger splitter, just perhaps some fatter arches. I think mechanically, brilliant. Looks-wise, they can go even further. Luckily, there is a car here that proves they can make one look very good indeed.